Joel, here we are for yet another episode by Dude.
We're a musician podcast, baby. Let's go.
Here we go. Now, you are on your way to a gig today. Thank you so much for taking the time to knock this out before you head. You're going up north of Los Angeles somewhere, right? Where you?
Yeah. Lancaster, up in the desert, playing a country cover gig. Nice little working man's gig.
See, I like the way you frame that, the working man's gig. Those are the in-betweeners, man. Those are the ones that fill in the bigger paychecks.
Exactly, man. In between, because like the HMMA's coming up, right? That's what you've been on.
You nailed it. That's exactly what I'm working on. The Hollywood Music and Media Awards. Yes, you're the drummer on those, but you're also the playback engineer. You also help me. You're like an assistant production manager with all those things. You help me build the stage plots, the input list, so as the work is never done. So right now, what we're doing, folks, this is an award show out here in Hollywood. It's their 16th annual Hollywood Music and Media Awards, and we're the house band. I'm the music director, and I also act as a production manager, even though we have a production manager, just because there's so many moving parts. And then Joel is like my assistant production manager, plus the drummer and the playback tech engineer. So man, it's a lot of stuff, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, I love like all the it's fast. It's crazy. Everything's moving back and forth. Things are coming in late. Artists take their time getting stuff in, but it's fun, man. It's so fun getting to do all this different music with so many great producers and players. I love it.
Absolutely. Man, how many, you've done a handful of these with me. How many have you done now?
This will be our 7th or 8th award show total, but like I think we've done 3 HIMAs. This will be our 3rd HMMA, and then we get that Red Gala, Promise to Live. Yeah. We've been knocking them out.
Yeah, man, you've racked up a bunch with me. That's awesome.
Yes, sir.
What do you think?
So fun.
What do you think the most important takeaway is when you're in this high pressure kind of show? It's being live streamed. It's being taped. You have a live audience. There's a lot of moving parts. What do you think the most important takeaway is? If you had to tell another career musician, okay, if you're getting ready to do your first award show, you better, or your first live kind of presentation show, you better be ready for X or Y or Z.
I'd say it's preparation. It's the way you come in. Like it's like we're a pilot when you're landing. The lineup and the way you come into the angle is the real important part to when you actually touch down. And so all the prep, all the planning we do, super fast communication, making sure you're doing emails right away, getting back to people. If you get all of that done, then it's like landing the plane's easy because you've gotten everything set up, and now you walk into that show much happier and more prepared.
Man, you follow those protocols that you already set, and then it helps.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so true. And that actually is a good segue to bring us into this episode of The Career Musician featuring fellow guitar shredder Rob Garland. Now, Rob is a really interesting story because we came about this episode through, dare I say it, the dirty word, networking. We were at NAMM. I was at NAMM 2 years ago, or even last year, I think maybe. Anyway, I was handing out, those giant career musician guitar picks I got?
Guitar pick, yes, so good.
I was handing them out, just standing out in front of one of the hotels and be like, yo, check it out. You might enjoy the podcast. And he grabbed them. He's like, oh, this is cool, mate. And okay, I'm not going to try to do a British accent, but I love his accent. So we're talking, find out he's a guitar player. And he's like, oh, I'd love to be on the show. So I was like, man, now here's where it ties into what you just said about the award show and preparation and all that. He kept communicating with me persistently. He was persistent, but he wasn't obnoxious about it. So that's the important part. And he talks about that in this episode, persistence over perfection, right?
That's such a good thing because we are so busy. Like musicians are so it's like chickens with your head cut off. Either you're doing nothing or you're crazy. It's like there's no in between. Yeah. And all of a sudden your calendar dies and you're like, I need some work. But then the work comes and you're just drowning. But that because of that, we're very disorganized. Things fall through the cracks all the time. And that's where that persistence comes in. If you're like, hey, I'm going to make sure this doesn't fall through the cracks. You can tell me no, but I'm going to make you tell me no. I'm not going to walk myself out the door. I'm going to be here until you actually say yes or no.
And there's a quote that's from the episode. If you email someone and they don't email you back, don't just leave it there. Reach out again. Be like, hey, what about blah, blah, blah. Try to find a different angle maybe to come from instead of the same thing over and over, right?
Yes, dude. I think that was probably one of my favorite parts from the episode. Yeah. That persistence. If you email someone, don't leave it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Don't leave it. Yeah. Another thing he talks about, which I love, I always say diversify or die. Now, I created a masterclass on this. It's on the website, The Career Musician. In fact, yes, shameless plug. It's part of the All Access VIP Pass. Yes, it is. You get 3 Career Musician products for the price of 1. It's crazy. Joel and I are going, we're going crazy marking down prices. But I did this diversify or die masterclass in this bundle. And the reason why is because I just did a whiteboard masterclass. Hey, but here's the things you got to do. do. Here's how you create multiple income streams. And that requires diversification in your skill set. And Rob really talks about that from his point, from his perspective, with live gigs, teaching, online courses, his YouTube stuff, real world auditioning for gigs.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what makes him such a great listen on this episode is he's so diversified. There's so many different avenues, and from a listener standpoint, that gives you ideas of how to do it. So you might get 3 or 4 great ideas, like, oh shoot, I could do that, and then you run out and do that and do it with your spin on it, and you've all of a sudden helped your career be more sustainable.
Right. Now, from your own experience, you've witnessed the past few years working with me.
Dude, I started as a blues drummer. I didn't plug anything in. I never touched an electronic. When the sound and power went out, I was like, I don't care. I just do my thing. And if I saw me now, like swimming in cables and iPads and playback rigs and backup and computers and all this stuff, and it's so much fun. And I didn't envision it. I had no forethought of this, but as it came up, it was an amazing opportunity and so fun. So you find these things along the way you didn't expect.
Yeah. But here's the thing. You're really good at it. You took a liking to it and you had this natural propensity to just crush running playback rigs and putting them together and doing all the ins and outs and stuff. It's discovery.
It is. Yep. Yeah. You find something you like and you just follow that avenue a little bit too, and you'll open up new doors.
Yeah. And actually, that's another great segue. Rob talks about developing your voice, finding your own voice and then developing it. And I think that's similar to what we were just talking about, maybe grabbing skill sets that we didn't know we even had and cultivating them and making them your own.
Yeah, and call back to the Max episode because he talks about that too. That thread pops up with all these pros that do it. It's finding something you enjoy and chasing it, and that develops your voice. Because it's so easy for things to become homogenized on social media. You see all these players and everyone's kind of starts doing the same thing. Yeah. And then every now and then you see someone that really sticks out and they do something very different. And those are the people that kind of rise above that noise.
So true. You have to rise above that noise floor, man. I like how you said homogenized because it does get like that. The trends they just morph into the same thing and everybody's just doing that.
Yeah, because everyone's seeing the same thing. You're all pulling out of the same pool. The algorithm sees what you like and it starts pushing the same stuff to you. Yeah. So I think it's important, when you see something out of the ordinary a little bit or something different, if it excites you, follow that. It develops your voice. It makes you sound different, whether it's on your instrument or on maybe following a different career path, like going down the playback rabbit hole like I've been doing, or music directing like you do.
Yeah. You and I, since we've been doing this together for the past several years, we've met 2 other guys who are drummers that also run playback. And I believe both of them, I think, they actually do playback as a gig where they're not even the drummer on the gig. They're just running playback.
Yeah, it's its own gig. It really can be. The higher level you go, the more it becomes a necessity.
Right.
Because you're so many things that can happen during the show, and you get more complex. You want to be able to open up options for looping stuff or fixing if an error happens. When you have just the drummer running it, when something happens, I just have to hit stop or pause or solo the click. I'm very limited on what I can do because I'm playing.
Right.
But those playback techs, man, that's a great gig.
It really is. It really is. Because you're part of the crew now, but you're a lucky part of the crew because you're not schlepping tons of gear, but most of the time you're just sitting there in the corner with your rig and just waiting for the band, right?
Yes, sir.
It's not like you're running around.
And you can leverage that into opportunities. A guest I'm hoping to have on soon. We're working out our next section of recordings, but one of the guests that we're gonna have on got into a huge gig because he started on the side with their playback. So surprise teaser there for some stuff.
Hey, pick drop, baby. All right, that being said, we're gonna get into Rob Garland. Oh, last thing I wanted to mention about Rob, he came over here to the United States from England. And look, now he did that a while ago, so perhaps it might have been easier. There might have been less red tape, but just like you moving from Salt Lake to Nashville to here, like me from New York, Florida, Japan, blah, 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 it can happen, folks. So if you're a dream, not that I'm saying that all career musicians need to be in LA, certainly not. You'll be a career musician anywhere, but if you do want to come to LA and maybe you're in a different state or a different country, it is doable. There have been others that have done it. Listen to what they say, ask, hit people up, get their opinion, their advice, and you can learn maybe some little secrets about getting your working status over here. So he talks about that a little bit.
Yeah, he has some great, and he has a very good approach to it, a very methodical approach where he's talking about how he set things up beforehand and did some stuff. So like you and I, where we just jump in, call them, we're like, let's just show up at this place, and we don't know anyone. He did kind of the opposite end of the spectrum where he was like very methodical and he's reaching out to people and getting net connections established. And I don't know which way works better. We'll see, but they both work. Like, I guess there's a range, whatever you're comfortable with, but just do it, man. It'll work out.
Agreed. All right, let's get into it. This Rob Garland. Have a great gig, Joel.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
Hi, I'm Rob Garland with Real World Guitar, and I'm a career musician.
You never know what you're going to get. Sometimes
Right,
you get
right.
really good stuff. And already we just dove in and we're hitting it off.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
had to
love it.
compliment you on your guitar closet, so.
Oh, yes, the guitar closet. See, I already forgot. Yeah. Okay, so now I got to tell the story that Rob brought it up
Right,
again.
right.
So they have California closets. For those who don't know, it's just a company. There was a company out here that called it a California closet where they compartmentalize everything. And when we bought the house, that was all those little compartments were there. So I just added my guitar coffin. I just added a bunch of guitar hangers. I think, what did I do? 5 on each row, 2 rows. And then I just put my amp heads there and a bunch of pedals and the other things. Yeah. So thank you, Rob, for noticing.
It's a
And
very nice use of space, is what I would say.
thank you, thank you. And I like your minimalist use of space because you're
Mine's
showing
more
off.
minimalist.
Yeah, but you're showing off your Fuchs, Bogner, and Tyler. It's
That
okay.
is
Those
true,
are,
that is true. Good eye, my friend, good eye.
yeah, all of those names are super, super serious, high-end boutique guitar nerd stuff. I think for those of you who are not guitarists out here listening to the Career Musician, this episode is going to be pretty much guitar nerd world. So, but I'm sure I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to make sure I ask Rob about other aspects of being a career musician. So we'll talk about business and we'll talk about auditioning and just all the stuff that career musicians deal with. But before we jump into that, Rob, I really want to know more about you. I like the fact that you're out here in LA. I think perhaps you and I need to take time to get together sometime and
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah,
grab some lunch, do some jamming. We'll figure that out.
yeah.
But
Because I think I'm pretty sure I met you at the NAMM show, right?
yes, and I was
It's
just going
always a
to.
good place to meet up with people because it's my happy place. I love NAMM. People moan about NAMM. I think it's great because it's like, when are you ever in that kind of environment? As you grow up as a musician, especially where I'm from and some of the places I've lived, you can feel like a bit of an outsider. And to me, the NAMM is just this great community feeling. Yeah, it's busy and loud and so on, but I actually really love it. Always have.
So I'm so glad you started there. We did meet at NAMM. I think was that the panel for LACM that you came up? I think so. I might have been doing like a little.
Might have been, yeah.
Anyway, but I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's so important to frame things correctly. And you're right, NAMM has gotten wrongly framed for so many years. Because, and I think, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but perhaps musicians get tired of hearing about other musicians' successes. So when you go to NAMM, you see nothing but musicians. And a lot of times, I believe musicians tend to come off a little braggy because of their own insecurities. Oh yeah, man. So what are you doing? Oh man, I just finished a tour with Bruno Mars, and now I'm in the studio with SZA, and then I'm composing this film with for Denzel Washington. It's like, what? Wait a minute, hold on. Like, how could you do all that stuff? I think there's a lot of that. I think a lot of that hyperbole talk. Wouldn't you agree?
I see that mostly these days on social media.
Mm,
And that's why I have very mixed feelings about social media. My NAMM experience, yeah, there's always a little bit of that, but my
okay.
NAMM experience has actually been really good for that. And I think the reason is most of the conversations and contacts over the years that have come from that have been super organic, like lining up for coffee, right? And because it's NAMM and it's musicians, the coffee lines are always insanely long. So you're going to be in that line for 15 minutes, right? So I'm in the line for 15 minutes, and honestly most of the stuff has happened in those lines or at the lunch breaks, and you just start talking to people, and I find those people to be extremely friendly and affable. Like, I'll give you one quick example.
I think you're right.
I saw a friend of mine, a fabulous keyboard player who works for Disney, and I saw him in the bar, and I went and sat at his table and we were just catching up. And he goes, oh, you should meet my friend here. And I asked him what he did, his friend, and it was a German guy. And he said, oh, I'm into music software and stuff like that. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. We had a little chat. Then this guy went off to get a drink. And my keyboard player friend leans over and he goes, you know what he did, right? And I said, no. He goes, he invented Logic Pro. I've actually seen quite a lot of humility from people, but it usually comes in the bar, in the coffee shops, perhaps not when you go to someone's booth and they're showcasing. And I've done some of that, and it's part of the gig. But so I would say yes and no to that. I've seen some real humility there. On social media, not so much sometimes.
You know what? Yeah, I sit pleasantly corrected. No, I think but I think you're right. I think absolutely think you're right. But you're also the NAMM experience, because it can be really noisy. Sometimes musicians, I find, like, you ask your buddies, hey, what do you listen to when you're not playing music or working on music? I listen to talk radio, man. Or I listen to podcasts. Back in the, hey kids, back in the day, it used to be called talk radio. Now it's called podcasts.
Exactly.
But no, I totally get it. And
I think there's something about catching people in those moments, though, like the coffee line or that, where it's not, I don't think at that point people are putting on their selling front. I think people are much more natural in those environments. So for me, that's where a lot of good stuff has happened.
No, you're right. And look at us. That's how we met. And
exactly.
It's so funny. Neither one of us can pinpoint the actual moment we met.
Well, NAMM's a bit of a blur, isn't it, as well?
But it worked out. So, man, I want to compartmentalize the interview into a few different sections.
Sure.
But I'm so glad we started with that, because that's a perfect icebreaker. But before we get into all of the main compartments that I'm thinking here, I really want to know, I want the audience to know a little bit about your history, because one of the things that on your website, right on the homepage, 30-year session touring guitar veteran. And that's my bio summed up in the same context. What's interesting is that we both had the same path, parallel universes, if you will, and we never bumped into each other before. That's crazy. And I think that's testament to the fact that there's room for everybody, man. It's like you never stole my gigs. I never stole your gigs. We never worried about, oh, I'm not going to be friends with him because I'm afraid he'll take my work. We both have thrived. We both have survived. And so tell us about happenings and the accent. Come on, man. Anytime you got an accent like that, you're already winning. You're winning.
I'm winning until somebody says, "Oh, I have a friend in Australia." And I go, "What's that got to do with me?" So it's probably a bit watered down, because I've been in America for 23 years. So, but anyway, so I'm from a little seaside town in England called Margate, which is 40,000 people, really small, just nowhere on the planet, really. Grew up there, started playing guitar at 14, became utterly obsessed with it, just to the point of craziness. Get home from school, play guitar, eat my dinner watching VHS, because I'm old, watching videos of there are a few seminal videos. Gary Moore live in Stockholm, Ozzy, the ultimate Ozzy, 86, Van Halen live and out on net. This was my dinner experience every day for years. Immediately after dinner, up to my room, play guitar the rest of the night. And so even though I was in the sort of mid-80s there in England, it was all Duran and Level 42 and some really good stuff. I became obsessed with kind of hard rock. That was my sort of intro to the guitar. And I think it's interesting to think about that, because when I was like, the first thing I ever tried to learn on the guitar, you remember in the guitar magazines, they had those note for note cassettes you could send off.
Yes.
So I sent away for the Blizzard of Oz note for note cassette. And that's the first thing I ever tried to learn on the guitar, which, if you think about it, it's ridiculous. Most people learn to play Mary Had a Little Lamb or something.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing. But because the guitar was so central to that music that I was listening to at that time, that pretty much set the path for me. So I took some lessons with a friend of mine who was also learning at the same time. So we were immediately in the garage playing. Oh, you play drums? A friend comes over. So I did all that. And then from a very early age, I started playing in bands. And from then right through to now, I've always had 2 or 3 bands, and they are always different. I've always done this. So it's like, if I was in a hard rock band, I'd be in an acoustic duo as well. If I'm like right now, I'm in a jazz rock band, but I'm also in a blues power trio. So I always want to have different stuff going on to challenge me. And that's never stopped. So I started playing in local bands in where I was from, and then started expanding out, and eventually got into the London college circuit and all that kind of stuff, doing showcases and trying to get signed, all that kind of stuff. So that was the early years, and then ended up moving to America. I landed in St. Louis, of all places, in the Midwest, and I lived there for a while, and that's when I did some touring with my blues trio, who were called the Blue Monks. And we used to do about 220 gigs a year. So it was
wow.
A lot of those gigs were 4-hour shows. So it was It was, I look back now and I go, wow, I must have been a younger man.
Okay, I'm making a note. I'm definitely want to come back to
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because I want to pick your brain about that.
Sure. Yeah, and I was singing lead as well for all that. So I was the singer as well. But again, even when I was doing that, the first gig I ever had in the US was with a 12-piece soul band. And I didn't play a guitar solo for a year and a half. And it was great because and that was the other thing too. And this is advice for anyone, doesn't matter what instrument you play. But I always looked for gigs that, even if it wasn't my favorite music, it would do something for my playing technique, abilities that I hadn't done before, or that I felt I was lacking in. So like before I did the soul funk band, I'm sure my right hand was basically just used to playing rock, right? Once you play that stuff, you understand 16th notes and syncopation
and muting and
muting,
a fret hand muting, pick hand muting, all the different muting techniques.
Yeah.
That's so important. Yeah.
And it's so funny when students ask about that kind of thing, a lot of it from all those gigs, and when you're doing it, you just make adjustments on the fly, right? Because you're playing through a loud amp. You don't want the audience to hear that string noise. So a lot of those techniques, you have to figure out later on as a teacher how to break those down. But a lot of those things happen organically, I think. Would you agree with that? Where you just...
Oh, man, I would totally agree with that. And I think if I can add to that, back in the day because we're around the same age, we've both been doing this for 3 decades. Back in the day when we were coming up, we didn't have YouTube, so we couldn't see it. We can only hear it. And I think by taking away one of the senses, like literally blinding yourself from the musician's technique, now you're relying solely on the audible. We had to dig even deeper into the nuances. And as we're digging, I think organically what you just said, by osmosis, the technique is happening without us even realizing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's out of necessity.
Yes.
Because the ear needs to hear, that needs to be cleaner. This needs to be this.
Yep.
Vibrato is a big part of that, I think.
Yep, agreed.
It's a hard thing to teach, but you have to develop it.
It's like teaching vocal inflections. It's hard.
Exactly,
You have to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so doing a lot of that, and then eventually 10 years of that, and eventually moving to LA. I had my daughter, didn't want to be away, wanted to be here all the time, to be dad, which I'm really glad I made that decision. So in the last 10, 12 years, been playing a lot of local shows here, but again, always mixing the bands up, like playing different bands, different styles, different things, some session work. And I should also mention, like pretty early on, like when I was at university in England in the mid-90s, that's when I really started teaching properly, really taking it seriously. And I've been teaching ever since. And it's varied between having 40 students or having just a handful, depending on what else I was doing. And then the teaching led me into working for TrueFire. And so I did a bunch of instructional courses for TrueFire, jam play, and I would fly to Colorado or Florida and film for a few days. And then eventually, and also did some books as well. And then eventually that led me to doing my own company with courses, which is what I do now, Real World Guitar, which is I'm making my own instructional courses for that as well. I also have a new book that I'm finishing up. And through that whole time, I've been writing and recording my own music as well. So doing sessions for other people, but always doing my own music and putting that out. And that side has obviously changed a lot. I used to sell a ton of CDs at gigs. That's all gone away.
Yeah.
so yeah, but whatever I'm doing, my real philosophy for this stuff, and there's a lot of challenge. I maybe make that sound easier than it was. There's a lot of challenge, especially when you move country, then you move state. There's a lot of starting over, a lot of hustling, like crazy hustling, right, to build things up. But what I would say is I really do think of it as if I have a guitar in my hands for most of the day, it's all good.
There you go. Wow. Said, I'm going to definitely insert some applause there. Woo. Yeah, that's a mouthful, but I really appreciate you giving us the layout.
Yeah, I just gave you the quick run.
I love it.
Feel free to follow up with anything.
Yeah, because now we have the trajectory of your entire career. And the first thing I want to say, who are you and who's paying you to be a spy on me?
I am British.
Are you with MI? What is it? I5? What is it?
MI6? I used to teach at MI, but that's not the same thing.
Wrong MI.
Yeah.
Okay, because
I wish I had an Aston Martin.
Exactly. We have so many similarities and parallel situations. I too am a father of a daughter, a dad girl. a girl dad. Sorry.
How old's your daughter?
She's just turned 18. She started
Oh,
college.
amazing. Awesome.
So,
Mine's about to be 13, so yeah.
oh, there you go. And I wanted to be close to her. And so that caused me to make some conscious career decisions.
Yeah.
I also started off really cutting my teeth playing in a big 12-piece funk and soul band.
Hey, that is
crazy.
strange, isn't it? Yeah.
I taught privately for many years. I also ended up, all of my lessons I recorded with Jam Play for a while. And then they all,
yeah, I was down there. That's
yeah.
great.
And then they all ended up on True Fire because they did that, what do you call merge, that merger. So I worked with Chris Lipe with Jam Play. Did you work with Chris?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know, Chris.
Yeah.
Funny.
Thrilled.
Small world.
I'm telling you, man, we have so many similarities. Unfortunately, I dropped out of college in the 90s. I didn't finish. But much like you, I've always really enjoyed that diversity. So I always try to take as many gigs in as many different genres and subgenres as possible. And I think there's something to be said about that.
That's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, I think whoever's listening to this show and really wants to get to the level that, someone like yourself has achieved, I think it's really important, gang, to keep in mind diversity is almost like its own skill set. It's really, there's a whole study of diversity.
Yeah, and I would think of it in two ways. In one, I couldn't be a career musician unless I'd done books, courses, teaching, sessions. There's just not, if I would have gone, I just want to play fusion and this band, it's good luck with that. I could have done it, but I'd have to be working a day job as well.
Yep.
It's just common sense, really. And the other thing about diversity is, so I was on the faculty at MI Musicians Institute, GIT as it used to be known, for about 5 or 6 years in Hollywood. And one thing I would see is some of the kids come in and they would be very narrow when they came in musically. They'd be like, I'm a metal guy. That's what I do. I'm a metal guy. And I took it as a mission that in the year or two they were there, when they left, I was pleased to see them taking jazz gigs and, I like Latin music now. I didn't know I liked country. And again, it doesn't mean they have to play that for their whole life. They could still be a metal guy. But I guarantee you, if you're into a specific genre and you take on aspects of other genres, it will come into what you do, your writing, everything. So that was a real mission of mine. I think it's super important.
So true, so true. And what's interesting is, don't you think that, haven't you witnessed that mindset, that closed mindset that eventually opens up? It seems like even over the decades, over time, that has never changed. It's like, for some reason, kids, young people, when they come in to play music, they're very narrow-minded, like you said. And then over time, their vision opens up. And that was true 30 years ago, and it's true today.
Yeah, and when I was 15, I was like that. But I think back and I go, yes and no, because I had my rock stuff, but I was also a really big Prince fan, and I started getting into Zappa. So it's even, I may not have been a huge fan of the pop music of the day at that time, although I appreciate it more now. But but there are little cracks. So I think it's really important to keep your ears open, because you will find something else out there that intrigues you. There's so much good stuff out there.
So true. Before we get into more of this career stuff, I have to go back to some vintage lifestyle. Man, when you said VHS and you said the magazines with the mail-in cassettes, or do you remember the Guitar Player magazines with their tear-out vinyl record?
Oh yeah, the flexi disc.
Oh man, the flexi disc.
Like I had Steve Vai's one, which is amazing. Yeah.
When they dropped flexible on the flexi disc, that was like mind blown. Right? Oh my gosh.
Right. And those flexi, how did they even play? It's crazy.
I don't know. I know.
Oh, that was so exciting to get the flexi disc.
So for the listeners who aren't hip, vinyl is a vinyl record, but it's really thick. Vinyl is just like a thick plastic, so it lays on the turntable nice and firmly, and it sits there, and then the needle goes on top. What Rob and I are talking about back in the day with the magazines, because we know everything has shifted from tactile magazines to online digital content. Still the same concept though. But back then, in the middle of the magazine, they would have this, it's almost like a paper thin vinyl page, and it had a record attached to it. And on the left side, inside near the binding, it had a perforated edge, and you had to either cut or tear that perforated edge. Yeah. Then you could take that flexible vinyl paper disc, put it on the turntable, and it would work. Now, a lot of times they would recommend putting quarters in the middle
to keep it weighted.
To keep it weighted down, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But man, so again, I think there's something to be said about that. And I just picked up a business card to show. It's just more, it was like that, but it was vinyl. But I think there's something to be said about the tactile experience, the tangible, this is a hard drive. I can pick it up and I can touch it. But at the same time, I can access music via the airwaves on Spotify. That's weird. Wait a minute. But I can't touch Spotify. I can never touch Spotify, but I can touch a hard drive. So it's so interesting when you separate those two worlds. And now everything is just so blurred and convoluted. What's your take on that with the technology and time?
And I think we have to be careful not to come across as back in my day. But at the same time, back in my day.
I know.
I still buy CDs because I think the quality.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Wow.
I know it's really dinosaur-like on me.
Now, see, I haven't bought a CD in decades, man.
I got this Denim system, and I compared the top stream rate of an album, and then put the CD on, and the CD just blew it away. It was like night and day, and I was like,
really?
But here's the thing: I use Spotify. My music's on Spotify. I do best of both worlds. It just depends. Right. When I'm making my coffee in the morning, I've got one of those little Marshall stream amps, and so I use what's out there. But I do see it, particularly like my daughter's generation. It is different. It's all about a song. It's all about what that is, and I guess MTV changed the way people thought about music as well, with the visual coming in. But just to get all nostalgic for a second, my friend and I there was this amazing radio show on BBC called The Friday Rock Show, and it was on at 10 p.m. on Friday nights. Yeah. We would record the cassette, we would record the show, and the next day we'd bike over to each other's houses, listen back to the show, it's a 2-hour show, and make notes. This is how nerdy we were. And that's like the first time we ever heard Nuno. Extreme was on that, for example. And we were like, and it was the first album. We were like, what the hell's that? So then we would choose, one of us was going to use our allowance or work money, and we go to the record shop, buy that one album, bring it back, and spend the next 2 months listening to that one record. Whoever bought it would record it for the other one.
That's right. That's right.
And then, so that's the reason why those albums are just stenciled into our minds, because we've spent so much time with them. So that's the part I think. I don't know if young kids that are buying vinyl, because obviously vinyl's back. I don't know if they're doing that. I hope they are. That'd be great. But it's very difficult for people's attention span these days to do a 45-minute sit down with anything else going on.
Yes. But see what you just described, with you and your friends sharing music like that, although technically by today's standards, that's considered illegal, but it's not. You were sharing culture and sharing art. Here's the takeaway. That scarcity, because it was so scarce, that show only came on Fridays. If you didn't catch it, hopefully one of your buddies did. And that scarcity created a sense of urgency. Oh no, guys, we got to capture this. We got to record it. We got to absorb as much as we can. Now, everything is so readily available. There's no more urgency to, oh man, if we don't catch this, we're screwed. Even like, I love what Jam Card is doing, Elmo Lovano, how he does his jams. But even that, if you don't make the live jam, you're going to catch the replay. So now it's, oh, so-and-so is going to be at the jam. I got to go. But you're like, maybe I don't have to go, because they're going to post it on all the channels after. You know what I mean? So I do think there's something to be said about that. So again, I think what Rob and I are both saying, 53, Rob.
Yeah, I'm 51.
Okay, there you go. So what we're both saying in our early 50s, I'm still in my early 50s, is that
you look well on it. You do. You really
Thank
do.
you. You too. I think what we're saying is, listen, what we learned over these 3+ decades, don't take it as us wagging our finger at you. No, take it as, oh, that's really interesting what these older guys can show us and teach us about what came before me. Because I'm going to tell you this, and I think, Rob, you'll agree, we looked up to all the cats who came before us, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that was the thing too. So when you get that one record, and that's the other thing I want to say about that as well. It, like you said, it wasn't readily available. But once we'd find one record that we were going to focus on, and we didn't have money to do this more than once every couple of months, let's say. So that was it. That was the record we listened to for 2 months straight, and then continued to. And what would happen is, from a guitar player point of view, if I heard somebody that really interested me, I then would scour all the guitar magazines to find an interview with them to find out who they said influenced them. And then I would go on that journey. And sometimes I go to the library and get out. I go to the library and be like, oh, Larry Carlton's talking about B.B. King. Let me go listen to B.B. King. Oh, I hear that. So
did you just, hold on, did you just say the L word?
I love the
You
L.
can't say that.
Yeah.
I love the L word.
Yeah. I met him right before my first ever True Fire shoot at the Baked Potato, and he went out for a cigarette break, and I sat with him for the break, and he gave me this just wonderful advice about doing the first shoot, and it was such a touching moment for me because I think the first Larry album I got was Strikes Twice. A guitar teacher that I had, his brother gave me that album to listen to on vinyl, and it blew me away and that was what started me moving into more of that direction. I wasn't quite as hardcore, like it had to be this kind of thing, and bringing in other influences. But yeah, Larry is a sweetheart. He's a lovely man.
That's so funny. I was talking about library.
Oh,
but I love it. I love it.
great. That's great.
But listen, I love both of those L's. I love the library and I love Larry.
That's so funny.
You're talking Larry Carlton. For those of you who don't know,
I
love it. No, dude, go look up Larry Carlton. You're going to be blown away. And what you said about us going to the people who came before us. So I do believe everybody should hold on to a sense of reverence, right? We got to revere those who have carved the path, and even revere those who are doing it now with you. Have reverence for your peers, your work companions, and so forth, because it's all love, right? We're all doing this out of self-expression and art. But what you said, when I would get a magazine with Larry Carlton or Steve Lukather or Steve Vai or Eddie Van Halen or Paul Gilbert, or the list goes on, or Paul Jackson Jr., I would read that article 17 times over, because I'm trying to glean information from their words. Wait a minute. What did they do? How did they? Okay. Because again, imagine, I keep saying this. I know it makes me sound old, and I don't look like an 80-year-old man, and I'm not an 80-year-old man, but guys, you got to remember, back then in the 80s when Rob and I were growing up, there was no friggin' YouTube. You couldn't, or social media. You couldn't see these people talk about things. You had to get whatever little bits of information and forensically piece it together to try to get the whole story.
Yeah, and I still have a bunch of my old Guitar Player magazines. I had them
Same.
shipped. From England. I mean,
wow.
And one thing I noticed, particularly about let's say 1990 and before, is the depth of detail in some of those interviews it was really good. Like you could find out things about their signal path and their amps and all that, but also about their influences. And I just feel, I don't know why the earlier ones, the interviews just seem more in depth to me. And sometimes even now I will sometimes Google an old guitar player interview rather than watch a video on YouTube, because I just think they have some great information in them.
I love listening to old interviews now, and I'm going to make this segue because I just noticed about a month ago when you booked the interview with me, I was like, holy cow, RWG, Real World Guitar, which is your channel. I was like, wait a minute, stop it. You're killing me. Dweezil Zappa, Steve Vai, Robbie Calvo, Scott Henderson, Andy Timmons. I'm like, holy shit, Rob, you're racking in some of the biggest and best guitar heroes of modern times. So I want to park there for a minute. I want to hear all about it. Please tell me how you ventured. How did your foray into the podcasting, YouTube video world come about? And how did you get these guitar gods? And man, it's got to be such a fun experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. One thing that I haven't had a particularly big social media presence. I think it's my own fault, because to do that, you really have to be putting content out constantly. And a lot of people started that in COVID, but I was teaching 40 plus students in COVID. I just didn't have the time. It was like, I just gotta make money. So so I think I missed that window a little bit, but I thought it would be really nice to try. I've watched a lot of interviews with people. I love watching interviews with musicians, and not just guitar players too. Like I'm a massive drummer fanatic.
Yeah.
Players. Anyway, so I thought let me see if I can get some interviews together And because I'm such a nerdy fan, like with the Steve Vai one, I really feel like Steve appreciated our interview because I went into very specific songs in his catalog, because I'm sure he gets asked a billion times about the Crossroads movie, or what was
With
it like
this,
being a
yeah.
rock star with David Lee Roth. And those are fine, but I just thought it would be really interesting to get more specific. So my angle to get some of these interviews was, I'm not going to ask the same stuff that everybody asks. Now with Steve, luckily, and this is, if you told the little 14-year-old of me in Margate listening to Flexible that I would, one, have a long chat with Steve, but two, actually play with him.
I remember. I saw that in the interview. Yeah, yeah.
When I was at MI, I had the chance to, and we played for about 25 minutes, me, him, and his band. And I tell you, I got up on stage with him, and he goes, "Just start something." And my mind flashed back to my bedroom with the posters, and I was like, "Oh God!" But I started this funk jam, and it was super. It was amazing. It was super fun. Trading back and forth, and it was a very surreal, amazing experience. But so luckily, I already had a little bit of a contact with him through that. So getting the interview with him wasn't too tricky. And for the other ones, I know Andy Timmons. He and I had some fun nights at True Fire dinner. So he and I are actually friends.
Nice.
So that wasn't difficult. And then people like Dweezil and Scott Henderson, I know because of MI as well. And I've seen him playing live a lot around here, so we know each other too, so that was easy. The people I don't know, Dweezil, I've seen him live many times, but I don't know him personally. It was just a case of getting onto his wife, is actually handles all this PR and stuff. So just bugging her and trying to suggest that the interview would be a little different than what's out there. And again, as long as you keep at it, these things could work out.
Okay, all right. I want to unpack that real quick. You said keep at it. So you're persistent without being annoying, right?
Correct. That's the key.
That's a fine line. You got to find that.
It is a fine line, yeah.
But that's testament to how you get anything done in life, really.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I tried to install in younger students as well, is that if you email someone and they don't email you back, don't leave it there. It takes, like you say, I'm sure sometimes I've crossed that line of being quite irritating to people, but sometimes it's worth it.
Yeah. Something I always say for musicians is what most people don't realize in the greater scheme of the industry is that as musicians, we oftentimes, more than not, do not have agents or managers or any type of business representation. Therefore, we're self-representing, and which means we have to acquire, cultivate, develop a sense of business acuity, savvy, and part of that is communications and knowing how to communicate effectively and how to advocate for yourself, right? How to solicit without sounding salesy and so forth, all these things.
That's a really good point. And something that I've thought about a lot is that, so growing up in England, that's not really what you're encouraged to do. When I was going, because you wouldn't ever go into a room and go, "Hey, I play guitar. What do you do?" That's just not how we were brought up. So I think I have to thank America for this, right? Because I think living in America and seeing the way people interact and stuff. Now, again, there's a fine line between being too much and being, but here's how I thought about it. When I would go to the early NAMM shows, and by the way, all of my endorsements came from NAMM, came from meetings I got at NAMM. And sometimes it would take 3 NAMMs to get to the meeting. I would follow up. And so what I realized is when you go to, you know how when you do a gig, depending on the gig, you almost take on a persona sometimes that's not what you are when you're sitting in your living room reading a book. You've got to be a little bit more outgoing than that, even though I'm quite happy sitting in a living room reading a book. But so you take on that persona. So I thought about the NAMM show like that a little bit. And I think that's why I always felt exhausted afterwards. Take on a little bit of a, not super showy, but more confident than perhaps I really am. And so you take on a little bit of a persona and you follow up with people and you just let them know that this is what you're looking for and let's have a meeting. And so that, again, it goes back to that thing you said about the fine line between being too pushy, but you've got to be confident. And a lot of people, because this is a people business too, and a lot of gigs I've got and things I think come from being personable, being professional and doing your homework. That's a huge one. Huge.
Man, you just said like those are the bylaws of how to become a career musician.
Yeah, but I say this though, I've met, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm bagging on the young people because there's
I
lots of
know.
young musicians that are amazing. But I also know some musicians, particularly in this town, that don't necessarily have that part of it together. They think, I'll just turn up, it'll be fine. And it's like, don't just turn up and be fine. They sent you 7 songs, know those 7 songs inside and out. Know not only your part, know the other parts, then go to the rehearsal.
Man, I always say that. Know all the aspects. So if you really understand what the rhythm section, the core rhythm section is doing, the bass and the drums, if you understand what they're doing, then you could really hone in on your parts and lock to them. Right? So now you sound like, even if it's a one-off and you're getting paid to do this thing, but you sound like you've been playing together for 5 years because you did that homework. And that's so important. The other thing is, so know it inside out, know the 7 songs they sent you, and then why not learn the other 10 in their catalog? Walk in and be like, oh, I know your whole current catalog. The show that you've been putting on for the past 18 months, I've been following it on YouTube and Instagram, and I know the whole set.
If they see 10 people that day, you're going to be the only one that is.
You're going to be you're guaranteed.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, what about that person who came in and they knew they even knew some of the songs that we don't perform. Like, how did they know that? They just knew it.
And here's the shocker about that. You're not going to get paid for any of that time.
No.
Right? You just have to do it. And that's the thing as well. So I have friends that in other businesses, and sometimes they say to me, spending a year working on a book and they don't pay you anything up front. And I go, yep. And because that's how this industry works with certain things. It's you mean you don't get paid for rehearsals? For this band I do, for this band I don't. Well, why would you do it? Because I want to do it.
Because I want to do it.
And it's worth spending the time so that when I get to the gig, I feel confident.
Yes. And the work that you're putting in on something, even though if it's uncompensated, what it's doing is honing and sharpening your skills for something else that's going to come down the line eventually.
And ear training too, as well.
It's ear training.
I encourage students to transcribe rather than just go on, guitar.
Or any of the tabs.
Any of the tabs.
Yeah.
Rather than do that, I always encourage them first, have a go at it. Now, if you feel like you're just hitting a wall, then maybe get some pointers, but try and do it the old way first.
Yeah, even.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I think what you were saying earlier about having to use your ear to listen to things. I think it was Nuno that said that skill. What it gave us is you might learn something incorrect from how the person really played it on the record, but that's okay because it's ear training and you're actually developing your own style by doing that. And I think that's gone away because it's like, how do I play this song? Oh, look, there's 50 YouTube tutorials exactly note for note. I have mixed feelings about that.
I do too. And to this day, I still play Stevie Ray Vaughan's Mary Had a Little Lamb the wrong way because that's how I taught myself when I was 14 or 15. And I just love playing it that way. Because that's what makes me sound like me. Because it's so interesting. There's something else about that. I could never copy any other guitar player or musician for that matter. I can never copy them verbatim. My hero, my all-time guitar hero was Eddie Van Halen. Oh, yeah. My second is Steve Vai. My third is George Benson. My fourth is Pat Metheny and these guys. Yeah. But I can never copy. If I copy them, I just felt uneasy. I'd be copying the and I'd be like, no, I don't want to do this. And then I just start improvising.
It's so interesting because I am the exact same way. And I would all those years I spent doing cover gigs and stuff, I never played anything note for note.
Same.
And because to me, if you're doing a tribute band, then you should.
That's different.
But if you're doing a cover band, I could never do it. And God, it's so funny you say that because for me, particularly with Gary Moore, who was my #1 guy, I had that same kind of icky feeling. Like I never wanted to learn the chords behind Joni Mitchell songs because I thought it's mysterious. I don't really want to know.
I don't want to know. It's so esoteric, and I don't want to know the formula of how they actually make beef patty hamburger meat. I don't need to see it. I don't need to know because I really enjoy a hamburger. It's the same way. I did the same thing with Eddie's stuff. I purposely did not want to learn all of those beautiful little riffs and things he did in Jamie's Crying or Panama or Drop Dead Legs or this and that. I didn't want to know all that stuff because I was like, then if I knew it, I would be like, oh, that's what he did.
The funny thing about Ed, and Ed's one of my top voices as well. The funny thing about Ed is that he's one of those people that very few people can nail it.
Very few.
Right?
Oh,
I
man.
feel like, and now I'm sure you've seen Wolfgang playing his stuff, and he's got it. He's got that gene. I know that's not what he's choosing to do, and good on him for that, but he's got that gene, right?
Yep.
Swing, just like Alex has got that swing, right?
Yes.
And the two of them together, and it's funny. And I probably shouldn't say this. I love Joe Satriani. I saw him live a few times as a kid, and I love what he does. But I don't love him playing Eddie's music. It doesn't sound right to me. And then nothing against Joe.
It's different.
Complain, but there are very few people that I've heard nail it. Like, you're playing something like I'm the One. There is such a feel in that. So now I love to play some of that stuff, but I would never sit there and try and get it, because it probably didn't do it.
No. And conversely, same thing. Like, when I listen to jazz, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to hear anybody but Wes or Joe Pass, or I would much rather listen to Miles Davis or Train or Bird than, and I know there's decades that came after them of mega talented musicians, but I just prefer going to the source, listening to it, getting fed from the well, and then closing the lid and just walking away and being like, okay, that's enough.
It's funny because Lukather was massive for me, because that was one of the first times, along with Larry Kahn, I was hearing some jazz vocabulary, but with the rock tone. And so that really opened my mind up so much. And it's funny, I like listening to George Benson or Wes, but I have zero interest in trying to play that tone and that style for me, because I'm more moved by Jeff Beck or someone. So for me, I find if I listen to a really good horn player, it's more like a rock guitarist. Do you know what I mean? There's there's an energy and a tonality to the horn. Like, you would hear that, especially somebody. Now, I'm with you on the greats, but I also love, like, Michael Brecker, for example, right?
Oh yeah,
something in his tone of the sax that's almost like he's kicked an overdrive pedal on a guitar, right? So
he's like the Eddie Van Halen of the saxophone. I think
he is like Eddie Van Halen. And so I get the same emotion, because it's all about emotion, right? I remember as a kid trying to listen to Blue, and it did nothing for me. Now it took me 15 years, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm hearing it now, right?
Now I get it.
You can only hear these things when you're ready, I think, in a way. You can't force yourself to listen to something, and that's why I never like it when they do all these polls and greatest this and that, because again, going back to what you said about the NAMM thing, and we touched on social media, music should not be a competitive sport ever. Dude,
field goal. You just said it. I agree. Yes, because I always say this: athletics has scientific metrics. It's based on.
Right, it is.
Art does not.
And you hear these great players like a Vai or Eric Johnson or whoever, they never speak in those terms. They never speak competitively about their peers. They enjoy. Great musicians enjoy other musicians.
Yes. Now, because I'm going to take a turn and I'm going to go into some business stuff, but before I do that, I want to ask you about this, since this will be like the guitar section of the interview. So what do you think about the evolution of guitar and guitar playing, guitar culture? Isn't it amazing that you and I have gotten to witness, from prior to us, the Albert Kings, the Three Kings, Albert, Freddie, and BB. We got to witness that. Then we got to, of course, before that, Charlie Christian and Les Paul and Johnny Smith. But then we see the Wes Montgomerys, then we see the George Bensons, then we get into the rock, and we see the Larry Carltons, the Steve Lukathers.
You got to do the Eric Clapton.
Exactly.
Well.
So we got all that. The Hendrix, of course, we saw all that. We saw all that. And then we see all this stuff. And then in our day, the pinnacle was Vai and Satch and Eddie and that thing. And then there was the Nunos.
Oh, and Yngwie was a big one, wasn't he?
Yngwie was, my God, freaking love Yngwie. I still love the way he just sweeps a minor arpeggio. I'm just that's the best.
And I think something that gets missed about Yngwie is his amazing vibrato. Ooh. It's like fantastic, right?
It just like, it screams at you. And then, of course, my dude, Ozzy Osbourne, the original, Randy Rhoads, and then, of course, Zakk Wylde. So we're seeing this.
And I was a massive Jakey Lee. Jakey Lee's my guy for Oz.
Another one.
I was really into Badlands as well. Love that band. So.
Another one. And then you had all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, here we are in the 2020s. And you're like, wait a minute, Tim Henson.
I know, it's bonkers.
And John Dreddo and all these guys and girls and people. You're just like, everybody is just shredding face is off. And I'm like, wait a minute. I have no face left because you just melted my face. I can't even pick up the pieces sometimes. Right. Tosin Abasi, and we're dealing with, because Sean Lane was a huge milestone setter, right? Yeah, just like Paul Gilbert and Bruce Boulez.
Yeah, I feel like Sean Lane was always on the peripheral in terms of like guitar culture, but I think now he's getting more appreciated again. I think it's coming back in.
And then of course you had Cacophony and Marty Friedman. Yeah. So but now it's so interesting when I look at the media. Again, for us it used to be magazines, now it's the phone. But when I look at the media, sometimes I get scared. I'm like, oh, that's too amazing. I can't watch it. It's like it's hurting me.
I think of it as BG and AG. Before Guthrie and after Guthrie.
Dude, wait, pick drop. Okay, I had to get that pick drop in there.
It froze in midair.
Okay.
In midair. That was
great. Oh, did it? Oh, okay. All right, we got to do it again. Pick drop. Okay.
It froze in midair. That was great. There you go.
Bro, before after Guthrie. I like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in the UK, no, that's good. In the UK, I used to get Guitar Techniques magazine, and Guthrie was a columnist long before he became known as Guthrie. So he was a columnist. So he would be, and you know how he was one of those guys that could play anybody else note for note. That's in part 10 years or whatever of doing those columns. This week it's BB King, this week it's Eric Johnson, and he would just be killing it with that. So you'd get a CD with that as well. But anyway,
so he was transcribing literal stuff and teaching it for the column. And by the way, gang, that's a good living back then for publications. You can make a good living doing that. Yeah. Okay.
And because he's such an interesting guy, I've met him a few times. He's such an interesting guy as well, because he's not somebody that's going to walk into a room and self-promote. He's a little awkward. He's a little socially, and he's a lovely, sweet guy, but that's not his thing. Everything comes through the guitar for him, as you can see. But I do think he was an absolute game changer. I really do. I really think, and I think to your point about where guitar's gone, I feel like it started there for a lot of people. Like for us, it started with the people we've mentioned, right? And then we would go back and look at their influences. I think for this next generation that we've been seeing, it started with Guthrie. I'm not sure they even went back. It started with Guthrie, Tosin, and went on from there. And I think, this is my theory on this, right? Because people have asked me about this before. My theory is the computer game generation.
Yeah.
Right? And also not having to go to the records and ear train, having it on YouTube, I think is what's given people this increased technique. Now, you can argue whether it's a good or a bad thing, but in terms of technique, it's a good thing, right? So I think they start with Guthrie, and just like I said to you, like my starting place was the Randy Rhoads playing on Blizzard of Oz, which now looking back seems ridiculous. But imagine starting with Waves or like Guthrie's Cheers. That's where I start. I don't play G to D. I start with a Guthrie album. That's what I learned to play first. Of course, if you start with that, your technique is going to be off the charts if you stick at it. And I think the computer game sense of, or video game, I should say, sense of just syncing of hands, hand and eye coordination. And I think the availability of every Paul Gilbert solo or whatever they want to learn is right there. And just the young minds can just take that stuff quicker than us old guys. So older. I think that's it in a nutshell. I think that's what it's become. Now, I'll let you respond to that and then I'll carry on.
Okay. First of all, I got to do another pick drop. Okay.
There it goes.
Yes, for crying out loud, you hit the nail on the head. I totally agree. I will say this. It's if you... Oh man, I don't know. It's like you started on steroids and then you had to go back and learn how to lift naturally. Like it's this weird reverse order of things, right? And because I will say this, and Tim Henson, I hope one day I meet you and we get to talk and kick it, maybe even jam. I hope the same thing for Steve Vai, but I noticed when Tim Henson got on stage to jam with Steve Vai. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to be polarizing, but I feel like I need to say it. Tim couldn't jam. He had no concept of how to jam and play fluidly without preemptively mapping it out and orchestrating it and having a schematic that he followed. And it just felt to me like, oh man. I was like, because I love these kids. I love what they're doing. I call them kids. I love what the young new generations are doing. I love it. It's, oh my gosh. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm not going to attempt that. I'm not going to attempt that. I'm not going to do that. But I'll tell you,
the rhythmic sensibility is amazing.
But I'll tell you this, they can't do what I do.
Yeah.
They can't do what I've done.
Do you think it's because, so my theory on that would be, I agree with you. And my theory on that would be, when I was 17, 18, we get in a van and we go and play gigs. And then we just keep doing it for years. And, oh, such and such needs a guitar player for this weekend. Could you do the gig? Yeah, let me learn the set. I'll go do it. All different styles, all different gigs. All those years of learning the craft of how to respond to other musicians in different scenarios, different rigs, different rooms, different everything.
Yep.
With some of these younger bands, I feel like they went to college or they developed this YouTube based skill, and then they went straight to these bands. Like, I don't know how many bands he's been in, probably not that many. So what he does in his band is fantastic. And he doesn't actually have to jam, does he? He doesn't need to.
Nope.
But I think that's it. I think it's, so I don't want to say he's not well-rounded, because I've heard him play different styles, but perhaps not as rounded as people that came up just gigging and gigging and in the real world, not on YouTube.
Yes, and on that note, all puns intended, and kudos to him, because he's probably a millionaire. He's probably a millionaire in his young 20s. So hands down to you.
He seems like a
nice kid. Exactly. Hands down to you. I'm not putting you down. I'm saying what you have done is amazing, because I didn't do it. I couldn't figure out how to market myself the way he did.
There's something I've thought about a long time as well. There's a downside to being well-rounded, and here's what it is, right? Could Yngwie go and play a jazz standards gig? I'm going to say no.
No, or a funk gig. He's not going to play a funk gig.
No. Yeah. So one of the things I noticed about these guitar players we keep referencing is they became known for one or two things. It was super fast, like diminished and harmonic minor runs. Yeah. And so, Eric Johnson, even though Eric Johnson's super diverse, right? I didn't play piano, it was amazing. But he's really not, like, if you said to somebody that maybe has heard a little bit of him, they're going to go those fast pentatonic runs and the wide chords or something like that. So each of these players, B.B. King, vibrato, space, right? You could name two things for each of these players. And so I think in a way, if you market yourself that way, it's really smart.
It's actually very smart.
Yeah, because you become known for that, and that's your niche and everything like that. However, the working musicians that maybe didn't have the luxury of getting on that level when we were younger have had to diversify more. Now, I'm certainly not saying we're better than Eric Johnson. There is no better. I'm just saying that when you have to diversify more, you can't focus as much on those two things that the world is going to recognize. That's a theory I have. What do you think?
I think I'm not going to do the pick drop because that's going to get annoying, but I think you killed it again. You nailed it. Like that's it. That's it. Because look, what is it? The mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of all invention. For us and our generation, we didn't have the media outlets that are available today. So you and I had to figure out how to transcribe so we can write books and sell those. We had to figure out how to transcribe so we could teach lessons. We had to figure out how to transcribe so we could learn every style, so we can go play as many gigs as possible so we can pay the bills, right? Now, because they do have these tools, these tangible tools that allow them to reach the masses, sitting in their 10 by 10 room, because we all sit in our little rooms making music, but now they have the portal. This is the portal. We didn't have that portal. So it is a different game. And for those who have leveraged it to their advantage, I just want to say kudos. They have crushed it. To those people like us who have leveraged our skill sets to our advantage, I want to say kudos. Those,
we'll give ourselves a little time.
Exactly. To those who are sitting somewhere listening to podcasts like this or watching YouTube videos like this, I want to give kudos to you, because that means that you're aspiring to do great things, and you're listening to those who came before you so you can glean some information to help you along your journey. So that's what it's all about, right?
Other thing about, absolutely, very well said. And one other thing about Tim Henson and that band, for example, they did something original. And that's so important, right? And it's whether we're talking about developing your own style on the guitar as a songwriter, as a band, the reason, and I give them a huge amount of credit for that, the reason why they have appealed to so many people is because they had original. Now, there might be other bands doing it, but to me, it was an original sound when I heard it. And that's a really difficult thing to do. And that's what Guthrie had, even though he was blending other people's stuff. He still managed to sound like Guthrie. He's one of those guys again now where I hear him and I know it's him.
It's him.
That's something, as a guitar player, we should all strive, you know.
Okay, I couldn't agree more. All right, folks, the guitar edition of this podcast is officially over, the guitar segment. I won't keep you too long, but before we go, Rob, I do want to ask you a couple questions that are really career musician tailored to the business. Number one, how did you, as an immigrant, how did you migrate over here and get all your paperwork in order? And do you still have to maintain that so you can continue working? Have you gotten the citizenship? Like, how does all that go?
So
any information
I got married. That's how I did it. Yeah. So I got married. I came over on what they call a fiance visa and had a certain amount of time. Now, when I first arrived, I wasn't allowed to work. So what I did was I just worked on my guitar playing for whatever it was, 3 months or whatever. And then you get a temporary work visa. And then once you get married, then you apply for a green card. And actually, that was a complete nightmare because the green card process, luckily I was able to work then and I was in that soul band we mentioned earlier. But the green card process was a nightmare because about 10-11 months into it, they lost my paperwork and I had to start the whole process over again, including the fees. But anyway, so it was a long drawn out process, as a lot of these things are. So I'm just on a green card still and I renew it every 10 years, I think it is, like that as well. I've thought about the citizenship thing, but for now, it's fine. I still really like being British citizen. I have a lot of love for my homeland.
I love that.
And of course, my daughter has dual, so it's all good.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Because I just want people who are listening who maybe are thinking about moving to America, if there's any information that they can gather from that. Yeah,
and some of the students at MI would come over on. We used to get a lot from Sweden because it was amazing that they had a government arts grant that would send them there, which is just great. So that's why. But they've stopped that now, which is a real shame. But so there are ways, like if you can get a year-long education visa to come to somewhere and study music college or whatever like that, and then they have the department there that helps you extend that for various things if you get work. So there's ways, but I'm sure in this current climate it might be getting trickier, but we'll see.
But if there's a will, there's a way, and if you do some research, there's nothing you can't figure out online these days. You know.
And I had a friend whose band leader applied for him for a visa and he got it. So if you can find a gig as well. And then here's another thing as well about every time I was going to move. So even before I moved in England to a different city in England, but before I moved to America, I spent 3 months looking at adverts and guitarists wanted listings and things like that, and set up auditions and stuff before I even moved there. So you can do this stuff. Now it's so easy. So if you're gonna move state to another state, let's say you're gonna come to California from somewhere else, right? Get on that Craigslist months before. There's this great site called Musicians Contact. It's a paid site, and start reaching out to people, because don't wait until you get here. Do it ahead of time.
That's right.
Files you can set up. So again, these are the ways I always think. Like for lessons, I have friends sometimes and they're like, I can't find any students. And I go, have you put business cards up in your local copy shops, library, music shops? And they go, no. Are you running a daily Craigslist ad and renewing it every night? No. These are things you got to do. It's like just be a little creative and that's the thing. You got to have the drive to do this. When people sometimes say like, when did you decide you were going to be a musician as your full-time thing? I said, I didn't decide. That's just who I was right from when I first picked up guitar. There was and I've made financially, there's been some tough times. I'm not going to lie. It's been tough sometimes. And I've had some fallouts with people that have said, you got to give this up. And it's no.
Yeah. Oh man, I can totally relate to that. I'm sure everybody listening to this can relate. Or I really appreciate the candor. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I really appreciate you telling us about that process, because it's important. Do your homework. If you study and put in the work and do things ahead of time, it'll work out. So I love that. And what brought you to St. Louis as opposed to right away going?
That was where my wife was living. So that's how that worked.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I figured that.
That was actually a pretty good music scene. It was very blues and jazz based, which I was getting into at that time. So it worked out all right. There's
nice
musicians there. But I will say, LA is the place I always wanted to be because, just real quick, when I was at college in the 90s, I was getting board tapes from the Baked Potato, the famous jazz club here that luckily I get to play at now. I was getting board tapes that were recorded there. I was buying them from Japan. This is so random. And having them sent to Canterbury in England where I was at college. So by the time I got here and went there, it was like a religious experience for me.
Wow.
Because I was getting all these Lukather and Landau and Carlton and all these great guitar players recorded there. And so I just became obsessed with it. And again, not to get all new agey, but I do think there is something about, like in the guitar magazines, I was obsessed with GIT as a kid. I wasn't able to go, but I think, and then I became obsessed with the Baked Potato. And I do think there's something in, you can make things happen. Again, I don't mean it in like a mystical way, but I just mean perseverance. And if I do this, it's going to bring me to there. And if I do this, it'll bring me to there. And I believe I ended up at those places just out of sheer willpower.
Man,
because there's a lot more talented guitar players out there than I am. So you just find ways. You know?
No, dude. Again, there's no metrics here. There's not a lot. No, you're a mega talented, mega beautifully schooled and soulful guitar player. You crush it, dude. I've checked your stuff out. Trust me, nice. You crush it. And you wouldn't have had a trajectory like this if you couldn't actually play.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But you know what it's like? We're always trying. I'm sure you feel the same way. We're always working on something new. We're always trying to bring the level up, just for us, really.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something else, the typical evolution of garage bands and being in different bands, then all of a sudden trying to get signed. How trying to get signed 20, 30 years ago is very different from trying to get signed today.
Yeah.
However, I do believe that principles remain while methods may change. Right. So what are some of the principles that you can tell us about that?
It didn't work. I have a heartbreaker on that, actually. But so what we used to do is, I had this original band in England called Dead Happy, and we got to make a video and do some stuff, and we would play these showcase gigs. And it's funny, we go up and stay in London, play the gig, and then on Saturday morning, like the naive 18-year-olds we were. Oh,
I lost you. You know. I'm sorry, I lost you. The naive
18-year-olds would go on the Saturday morning, we go to Sony Music with a cassette. We'd like to drop this off for A&R. But here's one that is a little bit of a heartbreaker, right? So Mike Varney is an industry legend.
Yeah.
He created Bracknell Records, and he had all these people like Greg Howe and Jason Becker and all these great, discovered Ingve, all these great talents. In mid-2000s, I finally recorded a record that I thought was good quality in a studio. And I sent it to him, and he goes, if you sent me this 10 years earlier, I would have put you on my label. Bittersweet, but I think I broke down in tears.
So wait, so he said, if you sent this to me 10 years ago, I would have signed you?
Yeah. But he goes, like, now it's just the wrong time. The label's not doing that now. We're heading in a different direction. The industry is changing. It was bittersweet.
And that was circa.
That was like I guess like 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
Okay. It was probably, that label was probably in its heyday, mid 80s to early 90s, right?
Yep. So, absolutely. Yeah.
But it was a very nice thing to hear. But so then what's the lesson in that? Timing is everything, right? There's the lesson in that, right? So
that's it. I love that.
Pay attention to what the industry is doing as well. I'm not one of those people though that can say I'm going to write a song in this style and send it. I don't do that. To me, some people do that and they do it very well.
Yeah.
Whatever comes out. This is why I would probably be a nightmare for somebody to try and market, because I'll do an acoustic song and then I'll do a heavy rock song and then I'll do a jazz. Whatever comes out.
Yeah. I get it. I love that.
But to the signing thing, I had some friends that got signed, which was great, and it was a little up and down for them and stuff. So it's one of those things, like, I don't think nowadays you really chase being signed, do you? I think it's more about finding distribution for your music. And of course, the great thing about the industry is that everybody can do it from their bedroom. The bad thing about the industry is that everybody can
do it from their bedroom. Exactly. I do believe that when you find that unique sensibility And I call it sometimes I've called it the USI, the unique sonic identity, or something that you could like, oh wow, I know that's so and can identify that a mile away. When you hear Zappa records, you know it's Zappa.
Yeah.
When you hear Vai, it's Vai. When you hear Michelle Nadezhio cello, it's
Yes,
her.
you
Like
do, yeah.
there's so many that we can go down the list. So I do believe that's important. Using that as a segue, touring is such a viable way to earn income for musicians. And you had mentioned that you toured with an original blues band, the Blue Monks.
Yeah.
How did you book tours? How did you
Okay,
say,
so-
okay, we're going to do this?
Yeah, so a lot of it was me. A lot of it was back in those days. I still run the website. But I would build the website. I book the gigs, drive the van, be the first one at the. I used to do a lot of that stuff myself. And in the Midwest, there was this thing called the Blues Society, which I have mixed feelings about. It's a lot of old white men with berets being real judgy about certain styles of music. Sorry, but so they would put on these festivals, and we would get on that circuit. And so what I would do is through them, there was one booking agent I used to use for that, and we would get on these circuits. So we would go and we would do a few club dates, and then we would do the festival. And the festivals were great. I got to play with but on the same bill as BB King and Booker T and all these great people like that. And then I opened for Chuck Berry, which was a miserable experience because he wasn't very nice. But so
Yikes.
a lot of that would come from, but those gigs came because I'd been doing so many gigs in that St. Louis, Arkansas, Missouri, all those, like the old fashioned blues clubs, and they were really fun. They were just like the Blues Brothers movie with the chicken wire. They were lively places, but I did a lot of those, like hundreds of them. And that would then get a little bit of a following, and then we could go to these festival bookers and get on those and do that. And then we would do that, and it was mostly through the middle and the south. It never really went East Coast or West Coast with that music, because that's really where it was based. So that's how I would do it. We would just gig like crazy. Sometimes we would drive out and do some corporate gig and then drive hours back and do a club that night. There was a lot of double headers and things like that. Again, it's a young man's game though, right? I don't think I could do that now.
I agree. I agree with that. Have you had much touring experience playing for other artists as a sideman, quote unquote?
No, mostly I've done sessions doing that.
Okay.
It's funny you say that, because it comes back to that thing we were talking about earlier about when you play covers and you sound like yourself. Like I'm happy if somebody sends me a song. I love creating a part for it and doing that. And I have no ego with that at all. If they're like, I want it to be super simple, 2 chords. I'm like, great, let's do it. Because when I'm working on my stuff, I treat myself to doing whatever I want. When I'm working on someone else's stuff, they're the boss, right? And I enjoy that. But for live stuff, I'm not one of those people there are people here in this town that are so good at it. Like they have the massive pedal board and they're chameleons with that. That's not really me for that. I don't really have a desire to do that, because I do my own music and stuff. So all the band stuff I do is usually related to my original stuff, or like Catatonic, everybody in the band writes, and that's an original jazz rock kind of situation, but everybody in the band that writes has a very different style. So it's really interesting, because we'll play the baked potato, we'll do 2 sets, you get 3 hours of very different music, a Latin tune followed by a funk tune followed by a rock tune, so it's really fun.
That's awesome. I love that, man. And this is why it's so important that people know it takes everybody's unique perspectives, unique abilities, and unique approaches, and there's room for everyone. So that's
that band for me has been a real challenge, because a couple of those guys are like hardcore jazz guys, and I'm not. I love jazz, but still to this day,
same.
Sometimes I'll say to them, you do know I'm not a jazz guitarist. I've been in the band for 6 years. I'll say, you do know I'm not a jazz guitarist. But they'll write these charts that are so complex. And so I love it, because to me, it's really hard work for me to feel comfortable and confident doing it. And that's why I do it. It's like the challenge of it is.
I love that. Step outside your comfort zone to keep fresh, to keep the challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. And then something I want to talk about that's universal to all musicians. I feel like everything we do in a way is an audition for the next thing we do. Any words of wisdom or any great stories you might have about auditions?
Yeah, I think auditions can be really strange, because one thing I've learned, particularly in this town, is you can go in there and you can play brilliantly, but the bass player is friends with the brother of the 32nd person that's auditioning that day. They're going to get the gig. So my advice to people...
Well said, bro.
My advice to people would be, and I learned this through experience, don't take it personally. That's my advice. Don't take it personally. Now, the practical advice is what we said about earlier. Learn the songs, learn the other parts, learn the rest of the songs. Be early, be on time. For being in bands, the main thing I would say is don't be a drag. Don't turn up and complain about the bills, or because it's like when people get together to play, it should be for the joy of it. And if you come through the door, and believe me, I've had a lot of experience with this. If you come through the door and you just hear somebody moaning and complaining, it just brings the whole thing down. So it's to me, it's almost more about that than it is, as long as you've got the musicality and you've done the work, just have a positive attitude about it. Music is a gift and it's a joy to be able to do it, right? So don't turn up as if you're paying your taxes.
Oh man,
Yeah.
so important. It's all
so important.
so important. It's all about the hang. Be a good hang. Listen, something that I always say, because I'm a music director and I'm always putting different bands together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, is that it's all about chemistry. And sometimes you actually can, just like a chemist is able to, as a musician, you can curate
Yes.
a positive experience by knowing the right phone calls to make. And Quincy Jones said it best. He said, as my job as a producer is knowing who to call. And auditioning is synonymous with that, because like I said, everything you do, there's potentially people watching you and they're seeing how you act and react and interact, and they're going to make mental notes, and that's how you're going to get more calls down the line. So be that fun, chill person, that good hang, but also, like you said, be ultra prepared,
Yeah.
super professional, courteous, and be genuine. Don't be so over the top where the hyperbole is just bursting out the seams. Don't do that. Chill. And it's like how you and I met.
Yeah, that's the problem. Sometimes I just get excited and that can come off a little bit like, oh, so I have to remind myself, it's like,
That's funny.
one less coffee, just chill out.
I'm the same way. And I think there is something synonymous with creatives, and we have that. We get excited, we get passionate about what we do.
Yeah,
I think
exactly. Yeah.
I think that's
a great point. A really interesting point what you said about the curating as well, because sometimes people like Miles Davis and Frank Zappa were as much about the people they put in their bands and their own playing, for example. It was always a way of finding these really interesting, and then letting that person have the spotlight for a minute and putting them back, which is probably what you do with the musical directing thing.
Exactly.
The other thing about auditions is, you're so right in that you don't know the bigger picture there. You don't know that this guy owes a favor to this guy's brother or whatever. So do your audition the best you can. If they might just say, thanks for coming, but it's not going to work out or whatever. Be super kind and courteous at the end of that, because if the drummer over there is going, hey, that guy's pretty good, I bet he would work in that other band I've got. But if you go, why am I not good enough? Then he's not going to call you.
Man, it's like when I got the call to audition for Babyface, it came through the call to audition for Christina Aguilera.
There you go. What a perfect example.
Wait a minute. Yeah. And then I ended up working with Babyface for 12 years.
That's amazing. Isn't that all? Yeah.
So here I am getting a call. Hey, are you available to audition for Christina Aguilera? Yes. Right. Okay, I'll be there. Click. And then I talked to the music director. Hey, Christina's audition got pushed back, but are you interested in auditioning for Babyface? Yes. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, what? And then 12 years later, you have a gig that really helped you build a solid career. Use that, and again, I'm not using it to brag. I'm using it as an example.
A great example,
to show, and you just never know. Now, that being said, I am Cuban Italian from New York, so boy, I have lost just as many gigs as I've gotten. I'll just leave that there.
Great. Yeah, I would say that's really cool. That's awesome. The other thing I would say is I get called to do these sessions at this place here called Lemon Tree. And it's really important when you do that to go in and have the same attitude, but be really open. Just listen to what the producer and the artist is saying. Don't go in there being like, I've learned this new lick, I'm going to put it in this song. Never do that. It's like, again, you've got to remember that you are the side person for that gig. It's really important. I love sessions, though. It's great. I'd like to do more of it, but I feel like there's not as much of it as there used to be.
It's a dying art form. I had this rack right here built for all my session work.
Oh, that's lovely.
By Dave Friedman of Friedman Amps, and it's got all the sliding drawers.
Oh, amazing.
Just like back in the 80s and 90s. In fact, all the pedals have dust on them, and that's testament to the fact that
that's another topic too. Is I'm teaching and doing some stuff through the Fractal, but live I still use the tube amp. So I'm mixing the two worlds together a little bit.
That's
what you said about what we were saying about earlier, the younger artists not necessarily having touring experience. When I was at MI, some of the people would come in to do clinics, some of these newer, and they would never have used an amp before. Even Pliny, who's a famous dude, right?
Oh, I love Pliny.
Yeah, he's great. But he said, no, I've never used a tube amp. I've only ever gone digital. Fascinating.
That's incredible.
What a different world.
A different world. I'll give you another example from the band that I just put together for the show we did in Hollywood. The other guitar player that I hired never played a show through an amp, and he was using a head rush. Yeah. And we did one award show in August and then another show just this past week. And the first show he used the head rush. And then I told him, I said, I want to challenge you to use an amp and pedals. And he's like, man, I don't have that stuff. He's like, don't worry. I have a garage full of that shit. So
was the head rush coming through speakers or in ear? How was he hearing this?
Both. We had it going. We had it going through the front of house, and
he didn't have a speaker cab or anything. Okay.
He didn't have a speaker cab. It was going through in ears, and I told him, I was like, bro, I purposely don't have you in my in-ears because I can't stand the tone. It sounds horrible. Okay. And I was like, it's not. And he's an amazing player and an amazing guy. Right. And so I said, this time I'm going to challenge you. I said, I'm going to bring you a combo amp and I'm going to bring you a basket full of pedals. And at rehearsal, we're going to put together a little pedal board of your choosing. You'll be able to go through and say, oh, I want to try this. I want to try this. Because I have hundreds of pedals in my garage. Right. So we did it. And he came up to me. He said, oh my, I have seen the light. He's just so enlightened.
Isn't that interesting? That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I was like,
he probably changed his whole life now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I will say this, I got to give testament to Tara Cacconi, who's another amazing guitar player out here in LA. Right. When I first moved to LA, I was at Center Staging rehearsing. Which is the premier rehearsal studio here in LA for those who don't know. And we were talking, we were chopping it up. He was with one band, I was in another band, and the studios are next to each other. And we were talking about rigs, and he goes, oh, I have one of those. And I was like, oh man, I always wanted to try that. He goes, tomorrow I'm going to bring you a basket of pedals. I was like, what? This is the first time I ever experienced this. This was like early 2000s. He shows up with a milk crate full of pedals, and he goes, take this crate, rehearse with it all week, use whatever you want. Yeah. And for the gig, when you leave to go on tour, take whatever you want. Just let me know when you come back and give it back to me. I was like, what? It was like, it changed my life. It was, first of all, it was such a kind gesture. Yeah. But then also it was like, oh, wow, how neat is that for somebody to have so much that they just say, here, take some of this, experiment with it, see what resonates with you. And I think that's so important. And it doesn't matter.
You paid it forward though, didn't you? In this example? Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. I firmly believe principles remain, methods may change. It's all the same stuff. It's just different ways of doing it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, it is. Yeah. It's interesting. But I think I really like what you did there, because I think you asked earlier about this modern generation of the Instagram guitarists and stuff like that. I would like them to just experience what a tube amp feels like.
Yes.
Because to my ear, and again, this might be controversial, I think digital is great. I don't think it's quite there yet. It's just my opinion. I don't think it's quite the same.
I agree.
About the feel, the sag. I'm not sure how to describe it.
Dude,
it's just something that's not quite there yet.
I'm gonna, my perspective, I would omit yet from that sentence.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's, no, because listen, here's the deal. What's the difference between driving an electric vehicle or a gas vehicle? Right. It's a huge difference. It's never going to be the same experience. Why? Because it's not supposed to be. Because it's different components. One has fire-inducing combustion. One doesn't. Like,
You want to hear a really embarrassing story? When I first went to Colorado to shoot for Jam Play,
yeah.
they wanted me to rent a car, and I rented a car, and I didn't know it was electric. And I'd never driven electric. I don't have an electric car. I've never driven an electric car. I go out in the parking lot because I got to drive down to where they are. And I'm in the car. I start the car and I'm like, oh, it didn't work. The car's not starting. I go back in. They come out and they're like, yeah, it's running.
Wow.
I didn't notice
See?
it was running because I couldn't hear the engine. What a fool.
No, but there you go. That's the perfect example. Yeah. And we know when the amp starts to make a little rattling noise or it's sputtering, we know that it's the tubes that need to be.
Yeah. So, to be fair, I really understand why people don't want to deal with that, because I've played gigs where tubes exploded.
Oh,
But I've also played gigs where the character of the amp is just, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that would be a good experience for some of the younger people that are doing that in their room and stuff like that. It's a different experience too, because it can be a lot less forgiving. You know, particularly like if you've got less gain on a tube amp, you have to work like, and that's what blows my mind when I hear Eddie Van Halen circa 84, 85. It is so clean. It is so, I'm shocked by how little gain is on that stuff. It seemed like the Donington footage, right? It's amazing, but it's really quite clean, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. That Donington footage is insane. All right, listen, Rob, this has been amazing, but here's what I want you to tell the audience. What is your takeaway for everything, real world guitar and Rob Garland? Because, man, you are the epitome of what I consider to be a career musician. You have all of the facets. You've really taken your talents and skill sets, cultivated them, and then you leverage them to your advantage. So kudos, man.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. It's really, like I said earlier, it's a mixture of dedication and just stubbornness. I'm going to find a way to play the guitar, and that's it. And it's like you only get one life, as far as I know. Why not spend it? I never understand. You meet people and they go, I've been working this job for 40 years and I hate it. I've been miserable every day. And I go, that makes no sense.
That's a bummer.
I understand we have to provide for families and do all these. I'm not blind to that. Yeah. But people can be very creative. You can find ways.
I so agree. Listen, do you prefer people to go to rwg.robgarland.net?
Yeah, if they want to go to that would be great. Yep. There's a mailing list on there, and I send out free lessons and stuff and thoughts and philosophies and all kinds of nonsense. If they want to click on that would be great. If you can do that on the homepage, there's an inspiration in your inbox tab. So if they click on that, and then if you look at the bottom of the homepage, there's all the social media links as well. So it'd be great to see some people on there as well.
And that'll be here. Yeah, absolutely. That'll be here in the show credits. And also you have your Real World Guitar YouTube and your Real World Guitar courses. Rob's got some killer courses here. I love how you diversified versatility. You're talking about picking, about the modes, about the cage system. You're talking about presets with your gear and just all kinds of stuff. So again, great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We didn't really get into it, but I became caged. The idea of cage really changed my playing. It was just a mind blowing for me. And actually, I have a very specific approach based around that I use. Again, people online are sometimes like, it's not a silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet. There are no silver bullets. You have to put the time in. But the way I approach everything is cage chord based, and it really works for me. And I've seen it work for a lot of other people now. It's good stuff. And man, I have to say that I've really enjoyed talking to you today. So thank you.
Yeah, same here, man. Really, we could talk for hours. So listen, let's do this.